Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. Assalamu alaikum. Today we're in Sacred House in Birmingham with a very, very special guest, Shaykh Asim Yusuf.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
As I said, I am from the Midlands, although my past is complicated. So I was born in London, I was raised in Manchester. I went to South Africa when I was 16. I did my medical degree there and got married and had kids. And then we moved back as a family to Walsall. And then I hop, skipped and jumped across to Wolverhampton a couple of years ago.
So you were born and raised here in the UK,
Yeah.
and then you went over to South Africa where
That's
you
right.
lived
Yeah.
for quite a while. How do you think living in a different country enriches your whole experience when it comes to dealing with people at the grassroots?
I think it massively enriches your experience. Just it broadens your horizons. You encounter different cultures. I mean, it really was. I mean, I was 16 when I went there, and it was a culture shock to go over there. So that the South African society was just coming out of apartheid at the time that we went over. And everyone very much thought it was natural to think along racial lines. So to hear people casually talk about, blacks and whites and Indians and so forth was very, very odd when you came from a very PC sort of, Labour voting, Manchester. But it's, it definitely enriches you and gives you an appreciation for different cultures and allows you, I think, critically, to see past stereotypes. And that's, I think we fall prey to this a lot. We stereotype people. And having experienced people who have a different culture to you, I think helps you, doesn't make it inevitable, but it helps you to really break out from that trap of stereotyping.
So when you did originally go out to South Africa, what things did you miss the most?
It was an adventure when we went. It came at a point, I think we were taking a natural break at school, so I finished my GCSEs, and my brother had finished primary school, so it was a natural break from that perspective. I missed my friends a lot, obviously, and I missed the ability to be able to go where I wanted to go on public transport. It sounds like a weird thing to say, but one of the first times I decided to go from my sleepy little town on the south coast to the big city, to Durban, I decided, me and my friend, to hop on a train and got mugged. So I realised pretty quickly after that, because I kind of went, oh, well, where did you go? Well, we thought we'd go to Durban, so we went on the train. You went on the train! You went on the train! Nobody goes on the train! It's like, so, okay, fine. So that was difficult. But it was a positive experience. I mean, it really was positive. I'm very grateful that I did it.
And I understand when you were there in South Africa, that's where you really embarked on your full-time Islamic studies?
Yes, that's right, yeah.
And how important or what kind of unique experiences do you think you gained by studying in South Africa, as opposed, I'm talking about in relation to living back here in the UK, as opposed to many people who might go to countries in the East to study Islam?
It's a very good question. South Africa is an interesting place. The Muslims are a small minority, probably smaller than they are even in this country, but the nature of apartheid meant that they were very concentrated and also were very self-sufficient as a community. So there was a very strong community. There was a focus on education and professionalisation, and that impacted really on all aspects of society, of that society. Again, it was a big culture shock for me to suddenly be surrounded by Muslims. I grew up in a normal suburb, in Manchester. I had, I think, 2 Muslim friends, I think, growing up, and most of my friends were white. Well, yeah. Now I'm going South African, but most of my friends were white. So that was a bit of a culture shock. But what I gained, I think I've reflected on this a lot. The religiousness in South Africa was a very natural religiousness. So you had differing degrees of religiosity, of course, but everybody felt very natural in their skin. And one of the things I didn't, when I only realised when I came back to England, that some of the religiousness that we see is an itchy religiousness. So people wear, and they are very sincere and so forth, but they wear their religion like it's a really itchy shirt, and they're not quite comfortable in their skin. And part of that is I think is a, forgive me for waxing philosophical now, but part of it is a subtle projection of their parents' version of Islam. And there isn't so the traditional Indo-Pak Islam doesn't really fit. So put that to one side. There isn't really a British Islam per se. So what do I do now? So then there's the Arab version of Islam, and then there's this person's version of Islam, and so forth. But none of them really fit. And I think we as a community and the South Africans, Muslims, had been in South Africa for 150 years. We've really been here, I think, about 40 or 50 years, maybe. We haven't really... I think it's this generation that needs to develop a British Islam. And that doesn't, that's not about watering down or anything like that. It's simply about finding a naturalness in our religion. And that's what I experienced in South Africa. And that, I think, was a very positive experience.
And do you think the reason for that is because the Muslim community in South Africa, as a minority, they've been there so long that they were able to discover who they were and feel comfortable?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the South African Muslims came as indentured labourers, actually. So one step above slaves. It was a one-way trip. They had to make the best of it, and that was that. There was no contact with Mother India. So you make the best of it. And yes, over a period of time, I'm sure with lots of false starts and false dawns, they developed their own culture.
Okay, so let's fast forward the tape a little bit now. So you're based in Wolverhampton.
Yes.
And I believe you work in a hospital. Can you tell me a little bit about...
Yeah, I work in a hospital called Penn Hospital. It is a psychiatric hospital because I'm a psychiatrist. And it's very nice. I enjoy it. It's not easy work emotionally because you're dealing with... Just before coming here, I had to go and see a young lady who was on the verge of killing herself because she had just delivered a baby and social services had removed the baby from her. And it wasn't very nice. It wasn't very easy to sit through. But somebody has to be there. People like that, and sometimes that somebody is me.
So your role in the hospital is a role which is in effect helping people. And I have a feeling this is going to be a common theme as we talk about the other things that you're involved in. It's about helping people. How important do you think it is for leaders within the Muslim community to be seen as those people, not just to be seen, but to be there as those people who can help others, regardless of their religious background, regardless of their cultural background, their ethnic background? When people need help, that they can come to people. In the hospital, in your setting in Wolverhampton, you are one of those people. How important is it to have more of these people?
Look, without launching into a bayan about this, the word Islam literally means to spread peace. And if you can't, and a Muslim is a person who does that. It's a person who spreads peace. And if you're not spreading peace, and peace means tranquility, it means making things easy for people, it's all those things. If you're not doing that, as someone who purports to be a leader of the Muslim community, then I think anyone would need to really think, really reflect on that. The Prophet ﷺ, when he said that Sayyidul Qawmi Khadimuhu, the leader of a people is their servant. That's not merely an aspirational statement. It's a statement of fact that in order to effectively lead somebody, you have to serve them. You have to assist them, because a leader fundamentally takes people from where they are to where they need to be. If you're not where they are, you can't take them to where they need to be. A leader isn't someone who stands over there and goes, "Come on everybody, it's over here." You've got to go to where people are. And it's been the way, and certainly this has been my experience, the Islam that I was first introduced to was Sufi Islam. and it was very much around my own teacher, who spent 90% of his time not talking about Sufism, but rather dealing with people's marital problems. Someone's died, someone's been born. It's all that sort of stuff. It's very mundane things. Because and what I learned from that, and I would get very frustrated because here's me, and I've come to learn, and I've come to become an alim and a Sufi and what have you, and you got no time because you're spending all the time with someone's got mother-in-law problems and daughter-in-law problems, and they don't want to advance spiritually. And he said to me, and he's always stayed with me, that my son, this is what it means to be a Sufi. And then he said, this is what it means to be a Muslim.
Mm.
You have to deal with the things that they feel are important to them. In the greater scheme of things, those things may not be important, but to them they are important, so they need to be important to you too.
So, continuing on this theme of service and serving people and being where they are, I understand you're involved in a few different initiatives as well, like a soup kitchen. You do lots of work for charities and different events. Let's come back to the soup kitchens. Can you tell me a little bit about that work and how you're involved and how it came about?
So this is something that we were very much in. As a psychiatrist, sometimes you talk about predisposing factors and precipitating factors. So the predisposing factor was this emphasis on service, and especially about attending to people's basic needs. The precipitating factor, I think, was we encountered a few young men and women who were doing this work in Birmingham. Actually, we were very much inspired by it, and felt that we should be doing this too. We should be putting our money where our mouth is, really.
So just to confirm, that the way you were encouraged to set up this initiative was by observing other people in a community doing it.
Yeah.
You liked what you saw the benefit in it, not just for the recipients, but also for the people who were involved
themselves.
And then you went away and set something up.
Yeah.
That simple.
It's that simple, and that's how it should be. There's no copyright on good ideas. So you see a good idea, take it forward and go and do the same thing. That's what we did, and there were discussions about should we set up our own little thing or should we start wandering around the streets looking for people to give food to. But what we came across a church in the centre of Wolverhampton, run by a lovely chap called Brother Stephen, who's been doing this for many years. They needed some help, and we said, something, we'll step in, we'll help you out. So we've got a very good relationship with the church. There are Christian organisations that will come, and there are Sikh organisations that will come and do it. And now there is a Muslim organisation as well. And what we do is we feed the homeless, whoever comes, we feed the homeless of Wolverhampton once a month, and we're looking to expand that out to other areas now, because the volunteers, yes, I'm there and I do, but really it's the volunteers that do most of the work. I'm just one of the volunteers there. Although it's headed through the foundation, the foundation that we run is what organises it. But when I'm there, whether it's a broom or whether it's taking food to people or whether it's being in the kitchen, you do what you need to do. So we're looking. Some of the volunteers, some come from Birmingham, some come from Dudley and other areas, and now they want to actually say, well, can't we do a similar thing? If we get some volunteers, can't we do a similar thing where we are? And what we say to them is, yes, we'll support you. We'll be very happy to do it, but it must be something that is sustainable. It's all very, they say a dog is for life, not just for Christmas, right? So it's all very well to get really excited and say, oh, let's go and feed people, and then 3 months later, from 10 volunteers, you're down to 1 person. Make sure it's sustainable, then take it forward.
So this initiative, I believe it's in Wolverhampton.
Mm-hmm.
I personally, I think it's amazing that not only are you able to feed those who are the most needy within your communities, but you're also, through that activity, able to build bridges with people of other faiths as well. How important is that work for people within the Muslim community, building these bridges with people of other faiths, and as you said, serving together?
It is the great. It is the one great challenge of being Muslim in Britain that everybody can contribute to.
Mm.
ultimately will be and should be judged by the good that we bring. It's not, rather than this, we need to have certain rights and so forth. No, we are here and we're not guests anymore. We're family now. This is our house. Britain is our house. Just like, we share that house with people of other faiths and other backgrounds. And our responsibility, this is the thing, we need to move, rather than talking about rights, to start talking about responsibilities. We have a responsibility. And our responsibility is not just to people who share our faith from other countries. Yes, we have responsibility to them as well. But to people who share our country, but not our faith. So we will, I think, if we can all demonstrate our worth and manifest our faith through our works, then I think you'll find that the lot of Muslims in this country will improve, because there will be a popular groundswell of support. And, we like these guys; they're good to us.
So, what kind of impact does this have in Wolverhampton? And just an initiative like this, does it improve relations between different communities there?
Yeah.
Have you noticed this?
Well, one of the simple things that we've seen, for example, is that there are other charitable organisations in Wolverhampton that have now come to know of us because of our work with the church, that are saying, well, look, can you help when it comes to asylum seekers? Can you provide, there are asylum seekers from Turkey, from Syria or from North Africa, what have you, they've come to us, but we can't really minister to some of their needs, their spiritual needs, and so forth. Can you help with that? So you start to find that, as you become better known, and as it becomes clear that you're reliable people, and that you mean good, that you mean the best for people, that other organisations start taking notice and so forth.
So Wolverhampton itself, how long have you lived there for?
I've been in Wolverhampton 2.5 years.
And do you like it?
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah. Any favourite places?
Well, where I live, Wolverhampton's on the right on the border of Staffordshire. So what we like to do with the family sometimes is take a walk out to the countryside. And there's some very beautiful countryside there.
Are there any places in particular? What's your favourite place in?
There's a place called the Baggeridge Country Park, which is a silly name, but it's really nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's really nice. So we often go for walks there.
And is that to relax and take in the nature after your busy schedule?
That's nature, man. That's it's really important. I'm very big, even when I teach and stuff. I'm very, very big on connecting with nature. This is the Quran is the book of Allah, and nature is another book of Allah. And when you're in nature, and that's not just when there's nice weather and the sun's shining, but when it's as we're about to do tomorrow, in the cold and the rain. Well, that's also nature, and it's part of experiencing it.
So you mentioned walking in the cold and the rain. This is for a charity project, is it not?
This is a charity project with Sacred Knowledge Trust, SKT Welfare, who are raising funds for winter funds for Syrian refugees. So people are going to have raised funds. You have to raise, I think, £50 in order to qualify for the walk, and we're going to go for a walk, and I get to talk, I think.
So the idea behind this is you being involved in this charity initiative, encouraging more people to come to raise money for Syrian refugees and buying winter kits for them.
Yeah, in this case it's Syrian refugees. There are other things. I mean, one of the chaps who started off with us, one of our students, who started off, helping in the soup kitchen and stuff, has started up his own initiative, which is a women's support fund, which is for battered women and people who suffer from domestic violence, to support them. We're supporting that as we support that as well. So, as you said, we were inspired in terms of this by other people. Hopefully, other people will be inspired by what we do to do their own little thing. And one of the things we try to do is keep it small, because it's not. Sometimes you think, oh, well, look at name your charity. I mean, Islamic Relief, Islamic, but these are massive things. I couldn't do something like that. Well, don't do something big then. No one's asking you to set up a multi-million-pound charity. Set up a little mom and pop charity in your own neighbourhood. Do a litter drive. Something like that. Make it sustainable, but do it little. Sometimes it's not about if if you can't help in a big way, help in a small way.
They say doing something small is better than nothing at all.
Doing something small and consistent is better than doing something big as a one big
one-off. You mentioned something before which got me thinking, because you're a doctor in a hospital and you come from a particular kind of background in terms of your education and I'm sure your lifestyle and so forth. You described that sometimes when you volunteer for these soup kitchens, you'll get the broom out, you'll feed people yourself, and that might seem to be against the tide for many people in the culture of the society where we live, regardless of what community background you're from. So where does the motivation for that come from? How can you come from this level of being a professional, a doctor, and bring yourself down to pick up the brush and sweep a little bit, or pick up the rubbish and throw it away, or even walk in the cold and the rain?
I don't recognise myself as being up there, I suppose, is the critical thing. Look, I do a job. It's, I was talking about the young lady, who I saw today. I have a role to play in that young lady feeling like there's something for her to live for. So do the nurses who see her. So does the healthcare support worker whose shoulder she cries on. So do the cleaners who clean the hospital up. Everyone has a role to play, and none of us could do our roles without the other people in that role. Whether you are the steering wheel or whether you are the accelerator pedal, you are equally vital to the functioning of the car. So if you see that and the reason I'm a doctor is because I was given opportunities in my life that other people weren't given. I maybe have certain abilities that other people have different abilities. It's not about what your role is. It's about what you do in the role, and it's about anyone can clean the dropped food from the floor. It doesn't matter whether you're the cleaner or you're the president. Using a broom is easy. It's a transferable skill. So if it needs to be done, it needs to be done.
Well, there must be something in it. There must be something in it for a person to want, because this is what I'm getting from you. You actually want to serve. You want to do service. Where does that will? Where does that desire come from?
It comes. I think a lot of that comes from the tarbiyah. Tarbiyah is a wider word than education. It's the way I was raised, both by my parents and by my teachers. There are teachers of mine who would teach Bukhari and Muslim during the day and clean the toilets during the night. So if it's good enough for them, then it's good enough for me.
In regards to you're talking about teaching Bukhari and Muslim, I understand that you're also involved in teaching classes. Is that here in Birmingham?
That's in Walsall.
Which
is another town, but yeah.
Yeah, and what does that entail? What's the format? How many people will you be involved in teaching?
So there's a number of classes. I mean, I'm restricted by time, obviously. So one of the classes is called the Path to Salvation, and that's a comprehensive program aimed at adults. But the aim of that is to teach you everything. I say everything. 80% of what you need to know, or to give you sufficient religious understanding and guidance to deal with 80% of what you're going to come across in the course of your life. And it's holistic in the sense that it's not just about how do I pray, and what do I believe, but it's a very strong emphasis on good character, and a very strong emphasis on ethics, actually, being ethical, being a good person, and how that transpires. And so we'll do the belief and fiqh and so forth, but we'll also do formal studies of character. We'll look at marriage, etiquette and adab, and good character in marriage, in trade, and so on and so forth. So that's that, and that class I think is about 80 or 100 people that come to that on a weekly basis. Then I teach certain things for students who've been with me a bit longer. So we're going through the Ihya Ulumuddin of Imam al-Ghazali. I also teach analytical theology, which is much deeper, a study of theology, very much again aimed at modern questions rather than the theology has always, certainly up to about 1600, it was very much moved with the times. If there was something comes up or some question comes up, philosophy or rationalism, what have you, theology kept pace with it. And so what we try to do is we will discuss theology from the perspective of quantum mechanics, or we'll discuss it from the perspective of what have you. So that's another class that we teach. And the reason I do that specifically, because I try to make things, I try not to, as much as there's a temptation to teach things that you want to study, I try to teach things that are actually going to be impactful and beneficial for people. And I think a lot of people have questions about belief, and so they need answers to those. That's another thing.
I mean, you just mentioned before teaching, what was it, theology from the perspective of quantum mechanics. I can only just say that. But this is a very, very niche subject, I'm assuming, and however, there will be lots of...
I make no claim to understand quantum mechanics, but yeah, it's in the light of...
But I'm sure there are lots and lots of young, believing Muslims out there who've got questions at this level.
Yeah.
And maybe we have a vacuum to fill.
I think we absolutely do. We live in a time and in a place where belief is challenging. And one of the things that challenges, there's something that challenges belief that has always challenged belief, which is people's behaviour. But then there is the whole question of science and how science impacts on faith. Are they opposed to each other, or are they in separate channels? Can they work alongside each other? And that's something that I think is a question I've come across many times. People have real questions about them. One of the things that, when I was studying, I was able to ask my teachers anything. Now, they weren't able to answer everything, and they were very clear about, look, we don't know the answers. But there is an answer. There is an answer. And they would tell me sometimes, look, you've studied all this stuff. It's your responsibility to find answers to this, because you've got that particular expertise. So I'm very firmly of the belief that our religion has answers to any question you can ask. You just have to have the courage to seek the answer. What often happens, I think, is that there is we don't really understand how this works. So we'll retreat back to what's safe. And if you ask about that, we'll just say, well, that's a bid'ah, you're not meant to talk about that. Not talking about it just keeps it inside, and then it starts to grow and fester. And so that's why we do it. I know other scholars would disagree with that approach and take a different approach, which is fine. You need both types of people in the world, I think.
Yeah. So one other thing which I know you're involved in, and we're talking about reaching out to the youth and being giving things which they can relate to. I believe you've been given a gift of having a very beautiful voice.
No, but I have had vocal training.
Okay. Right. So we'll disagree on that one. But you're actively a nasheed artist, a singer. Can you tell us a little bit more about how did it start? Where did you do your vocal training?
All right. So I was in a choir when I grew up. I joined a choir when I was 6, Manchester Boys Choir. When I was 6, and I was in that choir through my voice breaking, which is the critical thing. I was through my voice breaking until I left. One of the last things I did before I left England was I did the summer concert in 1992. Then we left the country. So I had vocal training from that perspective.
So you performed at a concert where amazing.
Oh no, in a choir. But we used to do quite a lot of concerts actually. But there were 2 big ones always in the. We did with the Halle Orchestra at one point.
So how do you manage to take the skills which you took from that experience and being involved in the choir and make them relevant to people from the Muslim community?
And that's exactly what I did. And when I was always under the impression that that you weren't allowed to sing in Islam. You weren't allowed to sing and that sort of stuff. And I got to South Africa, and lo and behold, everyone's singing. So I thought, great. But they were singing in Urdu, which I don't understand. So I would hear these lovely, beautiful things, and I would tell my teacher, so nice, it sounds so nice. What does it mean? He would sometimes sit me next to him, because he was wonderful like that, but he would sit me next to him, and he knew that this miskeen from England doesn't know Urdu. And he, as the person was singing, he would whisper the meanings to me. And I said, this is so beautiful. you know. And he said, and I said, but I don't speak the language. And he told me, my sheikh, he said to me, then maybe you should write things that do understand.
Mm.
Now at this point, I was actually composing music anyway. So what I did is, I took some of the spiritual guidance and stuff I'd been given, channeled it into this. And this is the way I sing is very much, as with most people, it's very much based on background and so forth. So because I had all this choral training, because all of that singing was almost entirely vocal, it gave me a really good kind of way of joining between this vocal tradition of choral singing and a vocal tradition of Islamic music. That's why there's lots of harmonies and lots of layers. I effectively in the albums I effectively become the choir, so I sing all the different parts.
Okay, so you've got to the stage where you've released albums.
Yeah.
Where does the content come from for these songs?
The content comes from Allah, I hope, rather than from my nafs. But it's very much distillations of teaching. They say that in the Indian spiritual traditions, sometimes they say that the teaching is found in the songs, and I think that's kind of what's happened. So there are songs that I've written that I've realised later are actually summaries of things that I've learnt, and that's because I hope again that I've internalised some of what I've been taught, not enough, but some of what I've been taught, and it's that internal wisdom, that internal guidance is what manifests in the songs.
And so the majority of the songs which you write and you sing, you perform, they're in English, is that right?
Pretty much all in English.
Yeah.
They will have Arabic choruses sometimes, but no, I mean.
Well, surely that's wisdom. When we're talking about reaching out to the youngsters.
So that's one of the lovely names that's called. So rather than nasheed, and nasheed basically means something that has a meter. That's all it is. So da-dum 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 da-dum. That has a meter. But the phrase that I like is wisdom. Wisdom is Western Islamic spiritual and devotional music. And I have Sidi Nader Khan to thank for that. But it's a lovely way of putting it. We hope that's what it is. It contains wisdom, and it's put across in a way that is it puts across guidance and love and compassion in a way that is appealing to people.
So when you find yourself on the stage singing to crowds of people, what kind of feeling, what kind of state are you in when you're there with those intentions of spreading peace, of spreading mercy, of spreading love? How does that feel?
Well, that's interesting, because I'm probably not going to give you the answer that you think I'm going to give you at this point. I actually don't like singing in public. And I think one of the reasons is I much prefer the process of creation, actually, than the singing. And part of the reason for that is there is a tendency, and again, water takes on the shape and the colour of its container, and it's the same with everything. And we are in the situation that we're in. We are in a materialistic age. We are in an age of entertainment, and what happens is that spiritual music or what have you can very easily be reduced to entertainment. So one of the things that really kind of gets my goat sometimes is when I am introduced as the entertainment, because that's not what it is. It's a lesson. It is the imparting of guidance that I have received, that I am passing on, hopefully, as beautifully as I received it. It's simply guidance in the form of a song, as opposed to in the form of a talk. What I really like, actually, is when, sometimes people come up to me and say, well, that song spoke to me. That song gave me an answer to a question that I had, or my children, go to sleep making dhikr because they're listening to that song. Because I mean, I'm sure you'll know this, and I know this. There are songs that I remember hearing when I was 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, and I can't get them out of my head. No matter how much I try, they're in my head. And when they come on, you get this flood of memories, and I can sing along with them, and that sort of stuff. So, for example, when I was a kid, my parents loved Bob Marley. So whenever a Bob Marley song comes, I hear a Bob Marley song, it's just, I know all the lyrics, And I realised, because now, the first album was released in 2004, 2005. Now some of the kids that were 5 and 6 years old now, at that point, are now 15, 16 years old, and I'm meeting them now, and they're saying, that's the soundtrack of my youth. And I really like that. That really brings home, what a privilege it's actually been to be able to do this. And yes, I have my parents to thank for things that you think, well, they took me to choir practice, to sing often, to be honest, songs from Oliver Twist and Mozart's Requiem and that sort of stuff. But what that did, that Allah works in, the Lord works in mysterious ways, right? And what that did is it actually gave me those particular skills. The experiences that I had in South Africa all culminated in actually being able to compose and produce music that speaks now to this British Muslim that we're talking about, or the Western Muslim that we're talking about. And part of finding your place in a society is music. Is that this is your music. That's really critical, and people underestimate that. This is your music, this is your art, this is your literature. It isn't the literature of your parents or the art of your grandparents. It's yours. You own it. And you can contribute to it. This is really important. You can contribute to it. So contribute.
I believe in your role as an artist, a singer, you're known as Talib al Habib.
Talib al Habib, that's right.
Could you tell us a little bit about that title? And
when I started singing and writing, actually, I didn't want to use my own name. So I asked my Shaykh, I was in South Africa at the time, I asked my Shaykh, I said, I want a pseudonym. And he kind of thought about it a while, and he said, okay, use Talib al Habib, and it means seeker of the beloved. Oh, inshallah, Allah makes me a seeker of the beloved, but that's what it means, and hopefully that's what even the name influences the type of music and the spirit behind it. And this is the thing. I mean, you said you've been blessed with a nice voice, and yet, honestly, and I'm not going to mention any names, but one of the most inspiring Muslim singers that I have heard, the one who really inspires me personally, doesn't have a very nice voice. Seriously, he doesn't have a very nice voice, but the man sings from the depth of his soul, and it's the emotion that is carried. That's what changes people. It's not the pretty words, or the pretty phrases, or the pretty face. It's the emotion, it's the hal, it's the emotion that comes from your soul. If you've got that emotion, go for it.
So if you were to summarise and review all the different things you're involved in, whether it's the singing, whether it's the soup kitchens, the charity work, the teaching, your work in the hospital as a doctor, which of these things is your favourite? What do you enjoy doing more than the rest?
The thing I enjoy, I think, more than anything else, and it manifests in different ways with different people, is when I get a sense that, and what brings me personal satisfaction, which perhaps it shouldn't, but that's my aim. But what brings me personal satisfaction is when I can see peace enter in somebody's heart. When a person who was broken-hearted starts to mend. Whether that's a person who doesn't have food, having a nice plate of, the smile that comes on their face when they've got a nice plate of food on a cold day. Whether it's a student in a class for whom the pen drops, and something from Ghazali or from one of the great masters of the past, answers from Ghazali talking 1,000 years ago answers the question that you had yesterday, or it's a patient realizing that maybe there is a point to it all after all. that's I think what I really, that's what makes me get up in the morning.
And in all of the different areas of work you're involved in, what's the biggest challenge?
There are so many challenges. The biggest challenge that any of us face is our own, is the worst parts of ourselves, and that's any of us. That's whether it's me, whether it's anyone else, and overcoming that is critical. You know, we have the answers inside ourselves. All of us do. We have the answers inside ourselves. The problem is, you need to look into a mirror to see it, and sometimes we don't like what we see in the mirror, so we don't look, and we never find the problem. So, helping people to recognize that both the problem and the solution lies within. Often the solution is buried under the problem. Both of them lie within. That's the biggest challenge.
And so when it comes to finding a balance between your work life and your family life, how do you strike that balance? Because everything we've talked about, it sounds like you've got a very, very busy schedule. I mean, you know, do you have children?
I do. I have two lovely daughters who are both teenagers now. That's interesting. But they are a credit to us, I have to say. I have an extremely supportive wife who not only supports but motivates me and organises me, which is the only reason I can do all the stuff that I do, is because she organises me. And it's always pushing me. So it doesn't let me rest on my laurels, for which I'm very grateful. In terms of the work-life balance, I find that, well, sometimes I counsel imams and scholars, because imams and scholars have issues too. And one of the biggest issues is you know, you're helping so many people. What about charity beginning at home? It's about recognizing, I think, that your first responsibility is to your family, and also recognizing that you can't help everybody. In fact, you don't help anybody. Allah is helping them. If Allah chooses to use you as His means and His vehicle to bring His assistance and His mercy to somebody else, then that's a blessing for you. Once you understand that, I think it becomes easier to say, well, I need to give my own family time. And I've been able. There are times that I, veer too far this way and too far that way, but generally I think, and I hope my family would agree, that I've been able to keep it on the straight and narrow. So, for example, this morning I was having a conversation about somebody who wanted to do a nasheed tour or something like that, and I said, well, as long as it's not in April, because April and May is for my daughter's GCSEs, I want to be there for her. So that's about, scheduling your time. So
I also believe you've got two other important members of your household.
There are two other very important members of the household, and I will be strung up and shot if I don't mention Khan and Nena, our two cats, who are full-blooded members of the household.
Yeah. Full-blooded
members of the household.
And do they get enough time?
Yes, probably a bit too much, I would say, but. and the cliche about the cat getting the best seat in the house is absolutely true.
Thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing your wisdom, and thank you for inspiring us with sharing the stories and all the wonderful initiatives what you're involved in, and we hope that other people see this as an example and they can follow suit. May Allah give you the best of rewards in this life and the next. Jazakumullah khairan. Thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum. Jazakumullah khairan. Right, this is the bit. Do you think is there anything else you'd like to mention? What we can add in afterwards?
Okay. I thought that was good. Yeah, I think we pretty much covered it. I mean, the only other thing was the research side of things.
Yes.
And the research stuff. The point about the research is, it is. there are two real research interests for me. One is the whole question of prayer times, because that's a big problem and it causes a lot of fitna. The book was meant to come out last Ramadan, but I missed my thing, so it'll come out.
Okay, shall we get on to that? Don't worry, I'll just ask a question about your.
Okay.
So I'll just ask about the research, and then you feel free to explain about it. So I also believe that you're involved in research. What shall we call them? Research initiatives. Yeah. So I also believe you're involved in several research initiatives as well. Could you tell us a little bit more about those?
Yeah. So this is these are again hopefully things that are I'm very keen to do things that are of benefit, practical benefit to people. So one of them is the whole question of prayer times. I'm sure a lot of those people watching will be aware about the 15 different calendars that we get, Ramadan and so forth. So the aim really is to pull together. I think, having spoken to people up and down the country, there's lots of different views about this. So to pull together all the research, scientific research.
I mean, the only other thing is
people
the
don't
research
actually
side of things.
Yes.
The
research stuff. The point about the research is
twilight. So the scientific aspects of it, the legal aspects, historical aspects. But then also
there are two
to actually
real
go out and look for the prayer
research
times,
interests for me. One is the whole question of prayer
out
times.
in the countryside, look for the first dawn light, when does it occur, and so on and so forth. So this is the project we're doing with. Hopefully it'll come to completion.
The book was meant to come out last Ramadan, but I missed my
The other
thing, so
big
it'll come out.
aspect
Shall we get on to that?
research
Don't worry, I'll just ask a question about your.
Okay.
So I'll just ask about the research, and then you feel free to explain about it.
That's my bit. But because I have medical training.
So I also believe that you're involved in research. What shall we call them? Research initiatives.
Questions around abortion, questions around.
So I also believe you're involved in several research initiatives as well. Could you tell us a little bit more about those?
Yeah. So this is these are
research.
again hopefully things that are I'm very keen to do things that are of benefit, practical benefit to people. So one of them is the whole question of prayer times.
Some of it's very practical.
I'm sure a lot of those people watching will be aware about the 15 different calendars that we get,
what is life and what is death.
So the aim really is to pull together. I think, having spoken to people up and down the country,
more specifically than that,
there's lots of different views about
spirituality.
So to pull together all the research, the scientific research, which most people don't actually have.
I find that when
most of the ulama don't understand
give a talk on Imam Ghazali, there'll be 50 people there.
The scientific aspects of it, the legal aspects, the historical aspects, but then also a project to actually go out and look for the prayer time. So go out and actually out in the countryside, look for the first dawn light, when does it occur, and what is. So this is the project we've been doing with.
Really,
hopefully going to come to completion by this Ramadan.
An Islamic model.
The other big aspect of
So I'm sure many of these
research
aspects of the
is
research which are involved
bioethics.
fly over the heads of
So
most people.
there are lots
So
and
where do
lots
you
of
see the
questions that
benefit
come up.
coming
And
to
I'm a
people
psychiatrist, that's my
by
bit.
engaging with
But because I have
the
medical training,
benefit is
I tend to have some knowledge of things like
first is
end of life,
I would
the questions
it's a project I have
abortion,
on the shelf,
questions around
but it's
everything in between effectively. So there are this is
that may be a book, it may
Centre
be a series
Centre
of
for Islamic
lectures,
Medicine, which is
on
a
different
research
aspects of
initiative,
mental illness from the Muslim perspective.
Doing research
So we're going to have access to that. It's very simple, very broken down, lots of analogies.
Which raises some of it's very practical, things like smoking cessation.
At the other end of it,
some of it's
some of it's
establishment
really
of the
theoretical
philosophical, like what is life and what is death, and so forth.
Completely scientific.
And then more
comes from
specifically
that
than
is
that is the whole question of Islamic spirituality
so
and
forth.
mental health.
To understand
And
that
the
perspective,
relationship
whether it's
between the
training
two.
somebody from
I
the
find
ground
that
to
when
become an Islamic
if I'm going to give a talk on Imam Ghazali,
in the same way as you have
if I'm going to give a talk
Christian
on
psychotherapy, Jewish psychotherapy. So these things aren't
depression in Islam, there'll be 500 people there. If I'm going to give a talk on jinn and psychosis, there'll be 5,000 people.
There are models.
But
so a way of interacting with
research into these and what is the really the important thing is I think what is an Islamic model
not just faithful to your faith,
mental
but
health and
completely in
So I'm sure many of these aspects of the research which we're involved in
but
fly
that's
over
really
the heads
the benefit there
of
comes
most
from
people.
training people.
So where do you see the benefit coming to the people
go up.
by by engaging with this.
Yeah, so the benefit is
people.
Twofold. First is over the course of the year, I would. It's a project I have on the shelf, as it were, but it's a
20,000 people. Whereas
a work on that may be a book, it may be a series of lectures, YouTube lectures, maybe on different aspects of mental illness from one perspective. So people can have access to that. Very simple, very broken down, lots of analogies and examples, so people can understand it.
But they don't recognise because
at the other end of it, the kind of the establishment of a theoretical framework
discipline
that is fully Islamic
fully
and
mature,
also completely scientific. The benefit that comes from that is then training
psychology.
Psychotherapists
and so 1,000-year-old tradition
to understand that perspective, whether it's training somebody from the grounds to become an Islamic psychotherapist, or in the same way as you have Christian psychotherapy, Jewish psychotherapy. So these things aren't, they're not.
So for the editor.
It's not something.
This is going to go back to the singing.
So a way of interacting with.
I believe you also have a Facebook page.
Schizophrenia.
I do like my Facebook page.
That is.
I was told to say that.
Not faithful to your
under the name of.
Completely in consonance.
It's Shaykh Dr. Asim Yusuf /
but that's really the benefit there comes from training.
So both of the names which
so
are
they can then
and
go out.
What are the benefits of being on Facebook? Because I understand you've got lots of.
Well, I become a celebrity. No,
okay.
the benefit of
100 people.
I actually did a workshop.
20,000 people, whereas before you
an
would have only
interfaith
reached
workshop with
200
Christian and Jewish.
That's the
rabbis
the end
priests.
product of research. There are lots of people doing this, but what a lot of them don't have is
one of the things we had.
They've got the Quran and the Hadith, but they don't recognise because often they don't speak Arabic. They haven't researched this stuff.
An official
there is an
like
entire
person
discipline,
did PR
a fully mature discipline of what's called ilm
al-nafs. One of the things that we took away from that,
which is
most of us
psychology. In our religion, we have a 1,000-year-old tradition of it. So, but I have access to that.
One of the things that one of them said is, do you realise?
That's perfect. Now, just one more thing about social media, about your Facebook page and this thing. So, for the editor, Paul Marcus, this is going to go back to the singing.
People don't have the time for 40 minutes.
I believe you also have a Facebook page under the name.
Like my Facebook page. I was told to say that.
Under the name of.
It's Shaykh Dr. Asim Yusuf / Talib al Habib.
Okay, excellent. So both of the names which you're known by.
Yes.
And what are the benefits of being on Facebook? Because I understand you've got lots of.
Well, I become a celebrity. No. The benefit of. I actually did a workshop, which was an interfaith workshop with Christian and Jewish rabbis and priests.
I don't feel that it's above me or that I'm above it.
And it was about a number of different topics. But one of the things we actually had a presentation from. Somebody who used to an official PR, like a proper PR person, who I think did PR for.
Sorry, I'm sure the answer was very long.
No.
And one of the things that we took away from that, because most of us in that room were not social media people at all. But one of the things they said, one of them who was said is, do you realise how many people out there you reach who you would never reach in any other way? Mm. People digest information in different ways that they used to. People don't have the time for a 40-minute sermon or a 3-hour bayan. What they've got time for is a little snippet on Facebook, or a 1-minute video, or something on Twitter, and that's their nourishment. That's their spiritual nourishment for that day. And that really struck me actually, because at the end of the day, you have to, if a person's not coming to the water, you take the water to them. So if you can reach people, it doesn't matter. We're not. I'm not too posh to have an Instagram account. I am at the moment, but that's because I'm disorganized. But I'm not too. I don't feel that it's above me or that I'm above it or anything like that. If it gets the message to people in a way that they can understand and a way they appreciate, I'm all for it.
MashaAllah, tabarakallah. Perfect. Amazing.
Very good.
Jazakumullah khairan.
Sorry, I'm